Marcus Aurelius's three-word shield against manipulators. We've all been there. At that exact moment, a conversation takes a nosedive. Someone says something, and you feel that hot flash of anger, that cold wave of guilt, or just a confusing fog of self-doubt. Before you know it, your emotions have been completely hijacked. You've reacted, said something you regret, or agreed to something you never really wanted. You walk away feeling used, drained, and kicking yourself for falling for it. Again, this is the manipulator's playground. They live and breathe in that tiny gap between a provocation and your response. It's a space of raw, instant emotional reaction, and in that space, they grab the controls. They don't have to shout. They just need to pluck the right emotional string, and you do the rest of the work for them. They've learned to predict and steer your feelings, often better than you can yourself. But what if you could slam that window shut? What if you could build a fortress around your mind so strong that their petty games become useless? What if a Roman emperor, one of the most powerful men in the world, a man who faced constant betrayal, political scheming, and the pressures of an empire under severe strain, mastered a mindset to do just that? He didn't have a magic spell. He had a psychological tool, a mental shield forged in the high-stakes world of Roman life and Stoic philosophy. It's a tool so simple, its core idea can be distilled into a modern, three-word command. This isn't just ancient history. It's a timeless defense that short-circuits the manipulator's entire game by creating one powerful, decisive pause. The emperor's problem and the Stoic solution. To get the power of this shield, you have to understand the man who needed it most. Marcus Aurelius. Don't just picture some philosopher in a toga, calmly writing in a courtyard. Picture the commander-in-chief of the Roman Empire, dealing with a devastating plague, endless wars on the frontiers, and treacherous plots from his inner circle. Every single day, he faced people who were, as he wrote in his private journal, meditations, meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. He simply couldn't afford to be emotionally volatile. One moment of uncontrolled anger or misplaced trust could cost thousands of lives, or even threaten the stability of the empire. He needed a way to stay steady while chaos swirled around him. He found his answer in Stoic philosophy, a practical system for living a good life, built on reason and self-control. The Stoics, particularly the brilliant teacher Epictetus, had zeroed in on a fundamental truth about our minds. As Epictetus famously put it, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Let that sink in. It's not the insult that hurts you. You judge that it's an insult that hurts you. It's not the guilt trip that controls you. You judge that you are obligated to feel guilty. That does the controlling. The event itself is external and neutral. Your reaction, your pain, your anger, that all comes from inside you. This insight is the key. It means that between what happens and how you feel, there is a space, a moment of choice, and it's in that moment that you can deploy the shield. The core Stoic practice for protecting this space is called the discipline of assent. It sounds technical, but the idea is profoundly simple. Assent just means to agree with an initial impression. When someone insults you, your first impression might be, "This is an attack. I have to fight back." The discipline of assent is about training yourself not to automatically agree with that first impression. It's about hitting pause to check it with your rational mind. The three-word phrase we're about to reveal is the modern, actionable version of this ancient and powerful practice. It's a mental command to engage your brain before your reflexes take over. It's the off switch for manipulation. The reveal, the three-word shield. So what is this modern command? This simple phrase that lets you step back, create space, and disarm a manipulator in a single silent beat? The three words are withhold, assent, now. Let's say it again. Withhold, assent, now. This isn't something you say out loud. It's a direct order you give to yourself. It is a mental fire break. The moment you feel that emotional hook, the flash of anger, the pang of guilt, the sting of a backhanded compliment, you silently and forcefully tell yourself, withhold assent. Now, why is this so devastatingly effective? Because it hits the very root of how manipulation works. Manipulators need speed and emotional reflex. They want you to react without thinking. They create fake urgency, trigger your insecurities, and leverage your compassion, all to rush you into a decision or an emotional state that serves them. The command to withhold assent does three critical things at once. First, it creates a powerful pause. It stops you from getting swept away by the intensity of the moment. It's like hitting the emergency brake on your emotional train. In that sudden stillness, you kill the manipulator's momentum. Real power isn't in the fastest reaction. It's in the deliberate pause. That space gives the rational part of your brain a precious moment to catch up with your initial emotional flash. Second, it detaches you from the provocation. By withholding assent, you are flat out refusing to accept the manipulator's version of reality. When they say, you're being too sensitive, your gut impression might be, oh no, maybe I am. Withholding assent means you stop and think, hold on, that's an impression, a claim. It is not a fact. You separate their words from your identity. You're no longer reacting to an attack. You're simply observing a statement. Third, it reclaims your power. Assent is consent. When you agree to a manipulator's premise that you should feel guilty, that you owe them something, that their opinion of you matters, you've handed them control. By consciously withholding it, you are stating, silently but firmly, that's your view. It doesn't automatically become my reality. You remain the judge of what's true. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. This phrase is the tool you use to realize that power in the heat of the moment. The shield in action. 5 manipulator plays and your Stoic defense. All right, let's move from theory to the real world. Here are 5 common manipulative tactics and exactly how to use the withhold assent shield to defend yourself. Manipulator play 1. The guilt trip. The classic. They make you feel responsible for their emotions to get you to do what they want. It's emotional blackmail, pure and simple. The lines they use, after everything I've done for you, you can't do this one tiny thing. Or, I guess I just don't matter to you, followed by a heavy sigh and, fine, I'll do it myself. Their goal, to make you feel so selfish or indebted that you abandon your boundaries to soothe their exaggerated pain. They want you to believe that your no is an act of cruelty. Your internal shield. You feel that familiar pang of guilt. Your instinct is to apologize and give in. Instead, you command yourself. Withhold assent. You refuse to agree that their happiness is your job or that setting a boundary is an attack. Your external response. Having created that pause, you don't get defensive. You don't argue. You respond with calm detachment. 2. After all I've done for you, you can say, I appreciate everything you've done. This is just something I can't do. You acknowledge their point without accepting the guilt that came with it. 2. I guess you just don't care. You say, I can see you're upset and that's not my intention. But my answer on this isn't changing. You refuse to get into a debate about your feelings. By withholding assent, you separate their disappointment from your decision. You aren't responsible for their feelings, you're responsible for your choices. Manipulator play 2. The urgency trap. This trick creates a false sense of pressure, forcing you into a decision before you've had time to think. It preys on your fear of missing out. The lines they use. This offer is only good for today. I need an answer right now. Or, if you don't commit now, this opportunity is gone forever. Their goal. to bypass your rational mind. They know if you think about it, you might find the flaws. Urgency is their tool to create panic and force a yes. Your internal shield. You feel the anxiety rising. The pressure is on. You command yourself. Withhold assent. You refuse to accept their timeline as your own. You recognize that manufactured urgency is a huge red flag. Your external response. Your voice is calm and measured. You are now in control of the clock. I have a rule not to make big decisions on the spot. I'll get back to you tomorrow. If the deal is only good for right now, then the answer is no. Thank you. I'll let you know once I've had a chance to think it over. You've just called their bluff. A legitimate opportunity can almost always wait a day. By withholding assent from their timeline, you reclaim control. Manipulator play 3. The flattery funnel. A subtle one. The manipulator butters you up with praise to lower your defenses right before making a demand. The lines they use, "You're the only one I can trust with this," or "You're just so good at this kind of thing, I couldn't ask anyone else." Their goal is to make you feel special and obligated. The praise is a Trojan horse. The request is the army inside. They want you to feel that saying no would invalidate the compliment, proving you aren't so brilliant or reliable after all. Your internal shield. The praise feels nice. Your ego purrs. But you can feel the ask coming. You command yourself. Withhold assent. You mentally separate the compliment from the commitment. Your external response. You remain gracious but non-committal. I appreciate you saying that. Let me look at my schedule and see if it's possible. Thank you for the kind words. I'll have to consider if I have the bandwidth for that right now. A simple, "Thanks for the confidence in me. I'll let you know." You accept the compliment but treat the request as a separate transaction. You've withheld assent from the unspoken deal. I praised you, now you owe me. Manipulator. Play 4. The anger bait. Here, they say something deliberately provocative or insulting, designed to make you blow up. The lines they use, "Wow, can't take a little criticism? Must be nice to have it so easy," or a condescending jab about your work. Their goal, to make you look like the unstable one. They light the fuse, then stand back and calmly ask, "Why are you getting so emotional?" Your outburst becomes the issue, distracting everyone from their original cheap shot. Your internal shield. You feel that surge of adrenaline, that flash of rage. You want to lash out, but you command yourself. Withhold assent. You refuse the invitation to their drama. You refuse to agree that their bait requires a bite. Your external response. You become a stone wall. Your response is disarmingly calm. I'm focusing on the content of what you said, not the tone. To, "Can't you take a joke?" You can say, "I can. I'm just choosing not to engage with that one." Often the most powerful response is dignified silence. Just an unwavering stare that says, "I see what you're doing, and I'm not playing." By withholding assent from the emotional charge, you rob them of their prize. An argument needs 2 people. You've just refused to RSVP. Manipulator play. 5. The vagueness fog. This tactic uses intentionally unclear or confusing language to make you feel stupid or powerless. The lines they use, "It's complicated. You'll just have to trust me." Or they bury you in jargon to hide what's going on. Their goal, to make you give up on understanding and just agree. They leverage your fear of looking ignorant. By making things confusing, they position themselves as the expert you have to rely on. Your internal shield. You feel confused, overwhelmed, maybe a little insecure. You're tempted to just nod along. Right there, you command yourself. Withhold assent. You refuse to agree to anything you don't fully understand. Your external response. You become a relentless, polite seeker of clarity. I have a policy not to agree to things I don't understand. Can you walk me through that one more time, but in simpler terms? Help me understand your thinking on this specific point. And the unbreakable rule. I need clarity before I can commit. Now the burden is on them to be clear. If they can't or won't, you have every right to refuse. Manipulators hate the light. The three-word shield, withhold assent now, is more than a clever trick. It's a modern tool for a profound ancient truth. Your mind is your own. It is the one thing no one can take from you unless you give them permission. Every day, people will try to get that permission through guilt, pressure, flattery, and 1,000 other subtle games. By mastering this internal command, you build what Marcus Aurelius called the inner citadel, a fortress of the mind that stays untouched by external chaos. You learn to pause. You learn to question your first impressions. You learn to separate what happens from the stories people try to tell you about what happens. This isn't about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about choosing which feelings to validate and which provocations to simply ignore. It's about making sure your life is guided by your reason and values, not by someone else's agenda. You don't need to win the argument. You don't need the last word. You only need to protect your peace and your power to choose. Let their waves crash against you. With this shield, you will remain unmoved, in control, and free. If you're ready to stop being a target and start building your inner citadel, subscribe for more ancient wisdom for modern problems. And now I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments. What is one situation from your past where this three-word shield would have changed everything? Let's learn from each other.